Hi everybody, welcome back to Educating's Animal Trivia. Today our trivia theme is going to be venomous animals and I'm very excited for this one. As always, there's going to be 10 questions that are multiple choice or true or false. After each question, I will pause and give you guys a chance to pause the video so that you can discuss and then we'll chat about the right answer. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get started with our first question, I want to quickly talk about what's happening on the screen here. So this animal that you're seeing is a gaboon viper who happens to have the largest fangs of any snake relative to their body size. And I get asked a lot why rattlesnakes and other venomous snakes don't stab themselves with their fangs when they close their mouth. How do they avoid sticking themselves? Well, as you can see from this little video, a snake's fangs actually fold up against the top of their mouth and they lay flat. And that way, when they close their mouth, they don't have to worry about sticking themselves in the lower jaw with their fangs. Okay, now with that little information nugget in your head, let's get started with number one. Which of these is not a venomous animal? A rattlesnake, like you see in that first picture. B, a millipede, like in the second photo. C, a lionfish. Or D, a platypus. Go ahead and pause the video so you can discuss as a group which you think is the correct answer, and then we will chat. Okay, so there are 3 venomous animals on this screen. However, the millipede is not one of them. The rattlesnake, of course, has venomous fangs that they use to inject their toxins. A lionfish has venomous spines on their back. So if you got pricked with one of those spines, it would inject venom. And I'm not going to tell you how a platypus does it because we're going to talk about that in just a second. But the key to all of these 3 venomous animals is they are injecting their toxins, whereas a poisonous animal, like a millipede, does not inject their toxins. Millipedes are poisonous. When they're facing threats, they'll kind of make this ooey gooey liquid come out of their skin that tastes really bad and hopefully gets the predator to leave them alone. This is poison, which is different than venom. Both are toxins that make other animals sick. Venom must be injected, whereas poison can be eaten or touched. So a rattlesnake injecting venom is different than a bird trying to eat a millipede and then getting all that grossness in its mouth. So venom and poison are very different. Today, remember, we are focusing on venomous animals. So let's move on to a tiny, adorable venomous animal, the honeybee. A honeybee's stinger is used for protection and for what? A, feeding. B, walking. C, flying. Or D, laying eggs. What is a honeybee's stinger used for other than protection? Go ahead and discuss. Surprisingly enough, for many species of bees, only the females have stingers. And that's not because females are the only ones who get eaten by other animals. It is because females are the ones who lay eggs. So these stingers, not only are they used to inject venom and protect the little bee, but when it comes time for them to lay their eggs, those eggs travel through the stinger into wherever they're being laid. So sometimes we call a bee's stinger an ovipositor, which basically means the thing that they use to lay eggs. We love to give things in science very fancy names. So we call it an ovipositor. All right, let's talk about that platypus we mentioned a minute ago. Number 3, A platypus injects venom using a spur on their what? A, on their hind feet, on their back feet. B, in their teeth. C, their tails. Or D, their elbows. What does a platypus use to inject its venom? Go ahead and discuss. All right, if we look at this duck-billed platypus here, it does not have a mouth or a face or teeth like a rattlesnake, so it does not inject venom using its teeth. You can't really see it in this little video, but their tail is not well designed for injecting venom either, nor are their elbows. But you know what is? Their back feet. Now I'm going to just pop over here really quickly so we can see. Only the males are venomous. They usually will actually use these spurs to compete for females during the breeding season. But if we look at their back legs here we can see their 5 toes, right? They have little claws on all their toes. But back here, almost on their ankle, we see this other pointy thing. That would be the spur that injects venom. So kind of unusual. Usually when we picture a venomous animal, we picture fangs or a stinger of some kind. We usually don't picture an animal's back feet, but for the platypus, we can and should. All right, number 4. A tarantula's venom is incredibly toxic and can be deadly to humans. True or false? Go ahead and discuss. All right, so tarantulas kind of have a bad reputation, right? Because they can be gigantic. The largest one can be 12 inches wide when you spread their feet out. So they're a pretty intimidating spider, especially because the bigger they are, the bigger their fangs are. But we don't actually need to be worried about tarantulas because their toxins in their venom are not deadly to humans. Don't get me wrong, if you get bit by the giant fangs that we see here in this picture, it probably wouldn't feel very good. And we can see this tarantula is actually moving around the skin on this person's hand using those fangs. They have great control over them, and they can actually, when they get threatened, they'll kind of raise the front of their body and hold those fangs up so the predators can see them, kind of get the predators to go away, hopefully. But even if this person did get bit by the tarantula right now, it probably wouldn't feel very good, but that person is not going to die. Tarantula's venom is very weak. So actually, tarantulas are an incredibly popular pet. Lots of people have them and handle them just like we see here because they are not deadly to humans. Okay, number 5. Several species of blank can actually spray venom at their attackers. Several species of what? Several species of A, tarantulas, B, rattlesnakes, C, sea snakes, or D, cobras. Several species of what can actually spray venom at their attackers? Okay, so every animal on this list is a venomous animal. So tarantulas, we just talked about. Rattlesnakes, we know if we see a rattlesnake in the wild, we're probably not going to go pick it up. Sea snakes are also venomous, but they cannot spray their venom. The only animal on this list that can spray their venom would be some very special types of cobras, which you guys might be familiar with as the spitting cobra. So not only can these guys inject venom if it comes down to it, but if there's an animal coming over trying to eat it, they can spray that venom, which could get in the animal's eyes or their nose or their mouth. And I don't know about you, but if I was the predator, I probably would be like, no, thank you. I'll go find my lunch somewhere else. I don't want any more venom in my eyeballs. So this is a very effective defense mechanism for some very special types of cobras that we call spitting cobras. Okay, number 6. Let's talk about some scorpions. The general rule of thumb with scorpions is the smaller the pinchers are, the what? A, the larger the scorpion. B, the more potent the venom, meaning the more toxic the venom is. C, the more weak the venom is. Or D, the more aggressive the scorpion. The general rule of thumb with scorpions is the smaller the pinchers, the what? Go ahead and discuss. Okay, so the rule of thumb is for scorpions that have tiny pinchers, who typically tend to have smaller bodies, these are the ones you don't want to mess with, because the smaller the scorpion, the more potent the venom, the more dangerous the venom. So animals, scorpions that have really big pinchers, when it comes to defending themselves or catching food, they've kind of got that taken care of, right? Because they have these huge pinchers they can use to grab things. Smaller scorpions that have weak pinchers, a lot of times to catch their food or defend themselves, they have to rely on their tail, their stingers on their tails to inject venom. And that venom tends to be stronger because they need to rely on it more than they do on their pinchers. Okay, number 7. People often become envenomated by a blank when they don't see it on beaches or in tide pools. So which venomous animal is hiding in a tide pool? A rockfish, B, a moray eel, C, a sea star, or D, a stonefish? Go ahead and discuss. There is only one animal on this list that is venomous. It is not a moray eel, nor is it a sea star. So that leaves us with a rockfish and a stonefish, which, I mean, rocks and stones are very similar, right? However, these two fish are very different. The rockfish tends to be more of a free swimming fish. We find them a lot around kelp forests. They're just a typical fish. We don't really have to worry about them. The stonefish, however, has incredible camouflage and is also the most venomous fish in the world. Remember that lionfish we saw earlier who had those venomous spines? These guys also have venomous spines. So if they are incredibly well camouflaged in a tide pool, and you're exploring the tide pools, walking around, and you accidentally step on the stonefish, that could be very problematic. Because their camouflage is so good, it does happen more often than we would like it to. Okay, number 8. People often get centipedes and millipedes confused. Which of these is not true about centipedes and millipedes? A, centipedes are venomous while millipedes are not. B, centipedes and millipedes are both carnivores. C, centipedes have 1 pair of legs per body segment while millipedes have 2. Or D, the number of legs a centipede and millipede have changed throughout their lives. So we are looking for the statement that is a lie, that is false. Go ahead and take a moment to discuss. Okay, so this one is a little bit tricky. Remember at the beginning, we learned about the millipede, and we said the millipede is not venomous. They are poisonous. Centipedes, on the other hand, are venomous. They have 2, it's almost like big pinchers they have right up by their heads that they use to inject venom into prey or predators. So A is true. D is also surprisingly true. Millipedes and centipedes both have hard exteriors on their bodies, a hard exoskeleton. And when they grow, they shed that exoskeleton and grow a new one. And when they do that, they also grow a new body segment. And when they grow a new body segment, centipedes grow one new pair of legs, and millipedes grow two new pairs of legs, because centipedes have one pair of legs per body segment and millipedes have two. So that must mean the lie on this list is B. Centipedes and millipedes are both carnivores. Centipedes are carnivores. They use that venom to hunt small animals. Millipedes are a type of decomposer. So they are eating all the dead plants and animals that end up on the ground. And as they eat it, they go to the bathroom and they return all the nutrients that they just ate back into the environment as usable nutrients for plants. So centipedes are carnivores, but millipedes are not. So B was the lie. Okay, number 9, only 2 more to go. The blue-ringed octopus is the only venomous species of octopus. True or false? Now let me show you guys a blue-ringed octopus first. You guys can see how they get their name, and they're very little and very cute. And now my question is, are they the only species of venomous octopus? True or false? Go ahead and discuss. Okay, so the blue-ringed octopus may be the only deadly species of octopus. However, they are all venomous, every type of octopus, and they inject their venom using their beak. And I know normally when we think of beaks, we think of birds. However, an octopus does also have a beak. That's their mouth, and it looks and works just like a bird's beak. And so while you may want to avoid the blue-ringed octopus specifically, you don't really want to get too caught up with any octopus because they are all venomous. Okay, you guys, our final question of our venomous animals trivia. Copperheads and rattlesnakes are both blank, meaning they can both detect heat using infrared sensors. Are they both A, amphibious, B, pit vipers, C, thermosnakes, or D, ectothermic? Go ahead and discuss. Okay, so copperheads and rattlesnakes both happen to be pit vipers. And pit vipers are named for these heat-sensing pits that they have on their faces. So if we look at this snake here, this opening closest to the front of their face is their nose. They do have noses, even though they can smell with their tongues. Over here, just to the left of that hole, this is that special heat sensing pit. So even if you had a pit viper and you covered up their eyes, they would still be able to detect warm-blooded animals like mice using those heat sensing pits. They can pick up the heat that warm-blooded animals are giving off. All right, you guys, I think that might be my favorite trivia that we've done so far. Weren't those animals amazing? Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you want to do trivia live with me, one of our other zoologists, and maybe a few live animals, be sure to check the description below, and we'll see you guys next time.